Put on a suit. Drink water. Don't drink and drive.
Game over!
Take it light. Okay?
Now you're more fluent.
He got free!
Up, Bears.
So this is really good right here. Absolutely. Let's do it.
Welcome to another episode of Leafs Unfiltered for Wednesday, July 24th. Hope everyone is doing great. Back here as always with Caroline. Caroline, what's new and exciting?
Good. Hi, Josh. How are you doing? Oh,
Can't
not
complain.
a lot. Just here in Toronto. Can't complain. Another hot day in Toronto. Yeah.
Another hot day, little bit of rain. That seems to be the norm.
Bit.
Yeah.
That's true. That's what's trending right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been a weird one between getting those hot, muggy days and then crazy rain mixed in. It's tough to plan your outings, you know? It makes it very difficult.
Your outfit planning is definitely affected by the forecast. Yeah.
Totally, right? Like you don't know what to do.
I've felt that for sure.
Yeah. So we finally, I guess, got, I don't know if it's the right term to say we got blessed with some Leaf news, but we finally got a transaction finally. So I guess the semi-big news in Leafland is that there was a contract extension handed out to Connor Dewar. 1 year at 1.18 million AAV. Probably something that was expected, at least him being re-signed, a guy that Brad Treliving added around the trade deadline last season. Obviously not a guy that came in and had a huge impact, but for me, I found him to be a very effective bottom six forward. Did some good things on the penalty kill. Very good defensive forward. Not going to get very much from him on the offensive side, as seen by the one goal he got in a Leaf uniform, combined regular season and playoffs. But what was your kind of initial reaction to the signing?
Yeah,
I like
I like it. I thought that was probably what was going to happen there. And it'd be interesting to see what we do if we do anything with the guys around him. Like, very curious about the Nick Robertson situation.
Mm-hmm.
And wondering whether there will be anybody new from training camp that we see on our roster come opening night.
For sure.
Some young guys. Yeah.
Totally. Because like right now with Connor Dewar on the books, that gives him 12 forwards signed right now. And that would not, as you brought up, that would not include Nick Robertson, who remains unsigned and RFA. It would not include Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton, who, depending on your perspective, could be on the team or might not be, but you still have a lot of options and only so many open lineup spots to put them in. So that kind of makes me think that there is more moves coming, which is not exactly a hot take, I don't think, but it just feels like this forward group isn't complete. Even though it has 12 forwards on the books right now, I can't see them going into opening night with those exact same 12. So I don't know if that means, someone like a Calle Yarncroke, a David Camp, would they move one of those guys if they feel that Easton Cowan and or Fraser Minton give them a better option with obviously more maybe offensive capabilities or what have you. So just very curious to see what happens. And then, there's still that Mitch Marner trade possibility hanging around. So I feel the forward group is not a finished package right now. I think there could still be some more moves. So something to follow for sure.
I agree with you fully. I'm excited to see what happens. Watching the Mitch Marner situation closely. But at rate, I think that he is going to be a Leaf. That's what I'm hearing. That's what the reports are saying is, July 20, whatever it is. I think it might be the case. But yeah, some of the other guys, some of the other moves could still happen. So we will definitely be keeping an eye on that, and excited that we've seen something solidify with Dewar. That was kind of, I think, always pending. And
Yeah, I think it was the right move. The one thing that I've noticed, even though there's been no communication from the team, they've taken Yanni Hockenpah off any of those Puckpedia sites, have taken his contract off of the roster breakdown. But I don't know if they're doing that on their own belief, based on their own belief on what's happening, or they're actually getting some sort of report from the team. I don't know. It's almost the change they've made would suggest that it's an official removal of his contract from the payroll, but without hearing anything from the team or the NHL, whoever, it just seems like that is still in limbo. But that remains very weird to me. I don't know what the hell is going on.
I don't think anybody knows.
No.
It's funny, the silence.
I mean, apparently Puckpedia thinks they know, but aside from
maybe
them,
there's a certain time limit that they need, the site has designated between when a player is added to a team and a contract is input. And then if that time isn't reached, then it goes to sleep. The contract goes,
could be,
but it's funny,
it just seems you would have heard something.
Yeah, maybe they got some information.
Yeah. So, I mean, that remains kind of something that's up in the air for the team for sure. So we'll see where that goes. Beyond that, in terms of Leaf news, obviously it's been kind of quiet. Obviously still, the daily dose of Mitch Marner rumors. I get where you're coming from. It feels like a lot of folks are kind of, I was listening to First Up with on TSN with Carlo Koliakovo and Aaron Korolnik. And the two of them were basically saying, there's no way he's getting traded now. I can't see how that's going to happen. And I might have to just die on that hill. But I think for me, I'm just I don't know if it needed to happen by July 24th. It feels like to me, if we recognize that Mitch Marner might only be willing to go to, let's say, 3 or 4 teams, whether that's Vegas, LA, New York, whoever, those teams would know that they're essentially negotiating against themselves if they're sending the Maple Leafs a trade offer for Mitch Marner. So you're probably not going to get their best offer right now, because they'll be okay, Brad, here's what we're willing to do for Mitch Marner. And Tree Living will be I can't give up Mitch Marner for that third pairing D-man and a second round pick. Sorry. But at some point, it's going to get closer to training camp, and a team like Vegas or LA is going to say, okay, we've kind of, explored any other opportunity to add an impact forward to our team. Yeah, we got to circle back on Mitch Marner. We don't want to go into the beginning of the season without anyone. So, maybe it's time we up our offer. So maybe I'm kind of alone on that, but I just haven't ever felt that if a trade hadn't materialized by the end of July, it would mean that he's going to be a Leaf. I still don't know if that's the case, but I totally get, where people are coming from. And you would hope that it would have happened by now, but I just think a deal of that magnitude might take a little bit more massaging,
Yeah, I know that that's been your stance, and I'm glad you've stuck with it. But I definitely have been hearing those reports that people are thinking
Oh yeah.
it would have happened by now. So I
Yep.
am sort of also thinking that it would have happened by now.
Yep.
And I think we might be seeing him in October.
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. And like, I could see a scenario where he begins the year here and maybe they just kind of see what they can do up until the trade deadline. Maybe that opens up some other teams if, and I think we talked about it last week, where obviously the pressure and the attention from the media, knowing Mitch Marner's personality and everything and how he's kind of sensitive and has been, as you put it, combative with the media, that might eventually get to him where it's like he'd be like November, December. He's like, okay, guys, I'll give you two more teams that you can explore a trade with. And then maybe that's where things kind of open up in terms of trade proposals and what have you. So, yeah, I could see that scenario where he is here opening night, but then maybe it's short-lived.
Yeah.
We shall see.
At least, I like that in either of those scenarios, we'll get some value for him instead of him just walking. That's the worst-case scenario.
For sure.
Is that, next year, come July 1, he's still a Leaf, and that, that's the worst-case scenario. So we do hope that we can figure something out, make some offer that's to a market that Mitch has agreed with, and so we will see.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I almost still think worst case scenario, even more than having him walk out the door for nothing, is signing him. Especially if you meet his asking price of like 12.5. Because then you might as well just, already pencil us in for no more than a playoff appearance, maybe the odd round one win. But you just know this team isn't going to, in terms of what the expectations are, not ever going to have that deep playoff run. And never going to fulfill the promise that I think fans felt this team had. So I feel that's the worst case scenario, signing him to a deal that just does not make sense.
Yeah, I truly can't see that happening with the fan sentiment around him right now. But, you never know.
Yeah.
In Leafland, you just never know.
I didn't think they would sign Nylander. I didn't think they would re-sign Nylander to that kind of contract. And they did.
I know that was snappy. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope not, though.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting to a fun exercise with looking at some, I guess, off-season questions that probably you and I and a lot of Leaf fans probably have thought about or maybe need to think about in terms of where this team should be expected to be, whether it's from a team performance, individual performance. But for sure, the top topic that's making news in the hockey world is the Edmonton Oilers hiring Stan Bowman as their GM and I believe executive vice president is his full title. So he's actually been given a promotion, which clearly not sitting well with pretty much everybody, I would say. Obviously, with what happened with his time with the Blackhawks, we can probably go into not so much the details of everything surrounding Chris Beach and the allegations and what actually took place. But when you heard that news, what was kind of your reaction? Like for me, it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? You really had to hire this guy? Like, I get it. There's the whole, well, it's a business. We want to find the best person that helps us win hockey games. But it just feels like this is such a, horrible look on an organization that has made a couple questionable hires and signings in the past. And to me, it's just a really, really tough look for the Oilers organization.
Yeah, that was going to be exactly what I said. What I was going to say is that they are an organization known for a few questionable hires, and this one falls right into that category.
Yeah.
Yeah, they always go for, the biggest fish or the best fish on the market, regardless of, shady dealings that fish might or might not have. So that seems to fit here.
Yeah. Well, they're just like a couple. Obviously, the main issue, the surface level concern, is that it's basically ignoring, not so much ignoring the act, but ignoring the involvement and the lack of response and the lack of action by the Chicago Blackhawks organization. Like, yes, the NHL did reinstate Stan Bowman and Joel Quenneville, but, you would hope that a team would be sensitive enough to what happened and recognize that you probably shouldn't not only hire the guy, but probably not give him an elevated role. It just seems like it's so kind of, lack of kind of recognition of what went on, dismissive. It has that old boys club type feel where it's like, yeah, we know stuff happens in our sport, but what are you going to do? That's kind of just what happens, because like there is a history between, I guess, President Jeff Jackson, who Stan Bowman will be reporting to. Like, it's more than just like a business relationship. When Jeff Jackson, in his previous career as a player agent, he represented a couple players from the Blackhawks. So they even, I think, brought it up in their press conference today that, we kind of have a relationship that goes back a little bit. Maybe something that probably didn't help their cause to bring up. Because then, when I heard that, I'm like, okay, knowing that, I don't feel very confident that Jeff Jackson was very thorough in turning over every stone, pulling back the curtain to find out, is this a guy that either is remorseful, is regrets how he handled it? Because even today, I don't know how much of the press conference you heard, if any of it, but you don't get the sense from Stan Bowman, and I guess it's tough to get a read on it from a half-hour press conference, but you don't get a sense of a guy who's truly, yes, he obviously regrets not having done more. I think he kind of recognized the whole organization absolutely missed the mark here by keeping that video coach not only employed, but there were so many other things. Like, there was a report that Bowman gave him a letter of recommendation that allowed him to get a job at, I think, a collegiate institution where he was supervising young hockey players. And there was another incident with that individual, another sexual harassment or assault incident.
Oh, God.
So, there's so many things that are just very tough to just accept when you kind of add up all those elements to it, all those layers. And it's you knew about all that and you offered this guy a job. And then with the relationship with Jeff Jackson and Bowman, it just kind of makes you think that's just the way hockey is always going to be. You would think with everything going on, all the attention and kind of, that you obviously want to make sure that every organization, whether it's hockey or any other sport, makes it a safe environment for every player. And everything Stan Bowman did and the Blackhawks organization was the opposite of that. When the incident was brought up to Stan Bowman and Joel Quenneville, it was in 2010 when they won the Stanley Cup. So I believe they were all notified in the conference finals after they had clinched and were going to the Stanley Cup Finals. And apparently, basically, what was told at that time by, I think, Joel Quenneville and the president of the Blackhawks, they're like, yeah, not the right time to kind of let this information come out because it's going to really throw off the momentum of the hockey team.
Wow.
And they just kind of like buried all those details. And then this individual, the one who obviously was accused and from this sexual assault, he was able to remain employed. You know, when the Blackhawks won the cup, he got a ring. He went to the Stanley Cup parade. There was, you know, one more incident of reported sexual harassment. And they just kind of allowed this individual to stay within the organization. And then only after was there something done about it. So it's all pretty wild and pretty disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really bad. That it's very much an old boys club, like you said. It just, these things don't get talked about, kind of get brushed away. But hearing it all spelled out like that sounds, really bad.
Yeah, and like all the, you know, like you don't have to look very far on your timeline on Twitter. Like the Edmonton Oilers organization, rightfully so, is just getting torn up. Like torn up. Everyone's like, this is like crazy how blind, how like, you know, how ignorant they are to all the issues, what the concerns would be, that they would actually pursue this hire of Stan Bowman. And it's just kind of mind-boggling that they went in that direction. Like, even if he's your top candidate, this is one where you just have to move on to your number two. You really do, you know? Like, you can't hire him.
I agree with you there. I don't know. Edmonton seems to not really have that morality test when they bring in new players or employees.
Doesn't think so. It doesn't seem like that, eh? Like there just seems to be like I mean, they're probably not the first. They're definitely not the first, and they probably won't be the last NHL team that kind of ignores some of the obvious red flags. And this is a very serious red flag. It's not like it's just a personality issue. Like obviously we've seen even with the Toronto Maple Leafs, concerns with like Mike Babcock and his treatment and verbal harassment of players. But what happened here takes anything Mike Babcock did to a whole other level of can't have it. You can't have it in that environment. And even like, some of the comments from Jeff Jackson, like one of the things that is a great look for Jeff Jackson. Apparently he put his Twitter or X account on private last night. There are a lot of people talking about that and I think people are like, some were trying to defend it that, well, he probably just saw like too many comments and too many people like being critical, so he just didn't want to hear it all. But then you hear him today when he was addressing the media, and I forget which reporter asked him, but someone said, like, what is your message to the fans who are really not happy with this move and feel like, you know, you guys are obviously making the wrong decision to bring Stan Bowman to the organization? And he basically was dismissive of it. Like, he's like, well, I can't really worry about that. Yeah. He's like, I can't really worry about that. And even Stan Bowman said, like, yeah, I get that the fans are going to be very upset and they don't kind of, they don't have confidence in what we're doing here. And it's my job to kind of win them over, which is fine to say, but it just feels like this wasn't like thought through very well, you know? Like it was like, oh, okay, there'd be some backlash, but should we really care? Like, and it's like, yeah, you probably should.
Definitely should. Yeah, the Oilers should have had a response prepared for that.
Yeah.
That announcement. and the
Like,
fallout that would come with it.
yeah, like where is their HR department on this one, you know? Like,
Yeah.
like I have to assume that, you know, there's going to be some young hockey players coming up through the system that when they get drafted, there's going to be some players, some families of these players that are going to be like, yeah, I don't know if I can really see my kid or my brother be a part of this organization, you know, and I don't know, maybe it won't affect them. And perhaps it is, like, as we were saying, the old boys club will always find a way to win, you know, and they don't have to worry about the same things that someone in like regular society would have to in terms of the backlash and probably prevention of employment. The fact that this guy, Stan Bowman, after what happened, and I know he wasn't directly implicated, but he was in charge of the hockey team. Like, that hockey office was under his authority, and he knew what happened and just kind of said, okay, guys, let's appreciate you providing those details to me, but let's kind of break here because we got a cup to win, you know? And it's just like, oh, it's a tough look. I could probably go on for like hours on it, but very tough look.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I don't have much to add. I think, everything you said, the extent of my knowledge on the topic.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot more news coming out about it, but yeah, it just seems like the whole off season, it's not going to be an easy, conversation. I don't think, obviously fans aren't happy. A lot of media has been very upfront and vocal with like their issues for the move. So we'll have to see where it goes. But I mean, obviously, they've decided to move forward with Stan Bowman. But yeah, it just seems that there's going to be a lot more criticism, and rightfully so. So we shall see.
It'll be interesting.
Yeah. So I think one thing we wanted to also do is go through maybe some rapid fire Toronto Maple Leaf questions, which is probably definitely a more lighter topic than what we just discussed with the Edmonton Oilers situation. So just kind of good pivot, right?
Yes.
So I think so.
Happier.
So obviously there's, we don't know for sure that this will be the final lineup and the final roster heading into opening night. But I've kind of jotted down some questions that for myself have kind of crossed my mind, but want to kind of get your thoughts on it. Probably don't have to spend too much time on each answer, but maybe just we're each kind of give our 2 cents on each of these questions topics and see if we're on the same page or if, we're coming from very different angles here.
Sounds
How
great.
does that sound? Good? Okay.
Yes.
So, on July 24th, the Toronto Maple Leafs should be viewed as a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. Yay or nay?
I'm going nay.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. I think there is optimism for me that, as we keep saying, probably not done with transactions. So I think after those are maybe seen or realized, my answer will change. But as the question stated, as of July 24th, today, are they a legitimate Stanley Cup contender? For me? No.
Yeah. I think, for me now, we are going back to next season with essentially the same team.
Yep.
Some minor tweaks, of course, but haven't fundamentally changed anything. The core is coming back. So, we didn't do it last year. And the fact that to this point, we haven't made any big changes, we're coming back to it with the team. I don't think we can do it. So that's where my nay comes from.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe we'll make a big splash with a trade or, sign some free agent that comes out of nowhere and saves the Maple Leafs.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you got to have some blind faith. I like it. Yeah, because I think for me, like, obviously, if you told me this was a team heading into round 1 of the playoffs next April, I'd probably say I feel better about their chances because of their blue line upgrades. But Stanley Cup contender? No. I think they have maybe more of a chance to advance, maybe go 2 rounds. But beyond that, I can't see it yet. Okay.
Well, that's something. Yeah.
Yep.
Current prediction, we'll take it.
Totally. So on to Austin Matthews. What would be your prediction for how many goals he gets coming off his fantastic 69-goal season? How many goals are you calling for him?
How about 70?
Ooh, topping it.
Yeah. He's
70.
Gonna repeat
Wow.
with a big one. 70 is going to hit that elusive 70. And that's my prediction.
Now, I assume that changes without Mitch Marner, right? So your prediction is based on assuming Mitch is playing alongside him. Is that fair or no? Or either way?
Well, right now I've assumed Mitch, but I think he'll I think he's going to find a way to get 70 at some point.
That would be incredible. I don't know. I just think too much has to go your way, like just based on what we've seen recently.
Yeah.
Like, I think the next highest goal scorer, I forget who was second, if it was Zach Hyman or Sam Reinhart. I think they finished with like 56 goals or something. So like,
wow.
Yeah. So the fact that Matthews could top what he did last year, like, obviously he has to play a full year again. So you're basically assuming he won't miss any games, which,
Yeah.
So for me, I have him a little bit lower. I have him, if I had to put a number on it, I'd put him at 62.
Okay.
62 would be my call.
Still a monster season.
It would be all right. I think we would accept that one.
Yeah.
I think we'd take that gladly.
Yeah, I think so. Wouldn't break records, but it would be a huge year, and we'd be happy to have him at the Leaf.
Totally. Yeah. No one would be complaining. So we kind of touched on this one a little bit, but giving you a different timeline here or time frame. Mitch Marner will still be a Maple Leaf at this time next year. So obviously post free agency next year. Yay or nay?
Nay.
Yeah.
Nay. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're kind of aligned there that even if he doesn't get traded, I think they're kind of the mindset that they'll be okay with him walking out the door. Like, I just don't see the option of him being re-signed. So to me, it feels like he either will be gone before then, but at the absolute latest, he'll be gone next July. Yeah.
I cannot imagine that we give him a big extension, but you never know.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine? It just doesn't feel like something a Tree would do. Like, he inherited this team. He wants to put his footprint on it. And I think one thing he can really do is swap out the Marner chip. He has full control of this right now. So I can't.
It's really the last chip he has to play, Like, if he wants to be employed as Toronto Maple Leafs GM for a long time, and I know a lot of fans might not agree, but I don't see any way he can have a long term as GM if he runs this thing back again. There's no way. And I get it. Some of what's happened is not his fault, but he has a chance here. He did with Nylander, chose not to take it. Maybe there was pressure from Shanahan. We don't know. But Mitch Marner is kind of that last opportunity for him. And then we're going to the other opportunity to recover or recoup cap space. But Mitch Marner, if you want to, recoup some assets or cap room, that's kind of one of the last chips you have to play. So, I think we're on the same page.
Yeah. I think we're on the same page there for sure.
Okay. So next up, John Tavares will still be a Maple Leaf at this time next year.
I think he's probably going to find, I think they're going to find a contract agreement that keeps him in Toronto. I feel like he's here, his family's here, they're comfortable. They have a cottage in Muskoka. His kids are young. I bet you he doesn't want to really leave. And he's not looking for glory in another market. So, I would think he could be here. Yeah. What do you think?
I agree again. I think with him, I think it would be a team discount that I think would be appealing to him. I think he'd prefer to remain here and maybe try and chase something elsewhere, and who knows where that will be. I think a lot will depend on the type of production, the type of season he has, like where will he be? I mean, obviously his production took a big step backwards this year. If we see a similar decline in production, then it might be a little bit more difficult because the Maple Leafs, depending on what they do with Mitch Marner, they might view Tavares and the 11 mil coming off the books as, we basically need every dollar of that to improve the team. And we can't even justify giving you 5 mil. Because I don't think John Tavares is going to play 2 years from now for like 2 or 3 mil. Like, I don't think his play comes that far down in terms of his decline that he's not going to be able to get a decent offer next year. But the Leafs might not be able to afford to give him 5 or 6 mil. So will Tavares be willing to take 3 mil from Toronto and willing to, overlook or ignore other better offers like elsewhere? That is where I'm kind of would be more on the fence. If he has a great year, I think there might be a mutual interest in both team and player to find a deal that works for them. But if at the end of the year, we're looking at a guy who's dropped again in terms of production and he only got 50 points and he's not even a capable or even a high-end third-line center, which I doubt he'll fall off that much, but just putting on the hypothetical hat here. If his play falls off that much, it might be really tough for the Leafs to justify giving him, even if he does take a discount. So that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of more the extreme, but I think realistically, I think he'll still prove that he's a valuable asset as a great face-off guy. Obviously, a lot of fans don't love him as captain, but he's still kind of been a soldier. A lot of good things come with having John Tavares on your team that I don't think you just want to see him walk out the door, especially if he really wants to remain a Leaf.
I wonder if we do sign him to an extension, will he continue to wear the C? That is a conversation.
That's a good question.
Down the road, but
because I think we've talked about it, like going into next season, will the captaincy be passed over to Matthews? I don't see a scenario where the team forces Tavares to do that. I don't see a scenario where Tavares just says, oh yeah, hey, here's the C. I really don't think I deserve it anymore. It doesn't feel like how that would take place, you know? Like, I don't think Austin Matthews is like, spending his entire summer being like, wow, I really wish I could be the captain. That would really make me happy. Without it, I'm not really happy being a Leaf. I think he'd like to be captain, but I don't think it's like the utmost importance to him right now, if I had to guess. So I don't see a change happening. But yeah, to your point, after next year, if you are bringing Tavares back on at a discounted rate, it might make sense to say, okay, John, you're probably only you're gonna be playing a diminished role on the third line. If we do bring you back, it might make more sense to pass the torch here. So I could see that for sure.
I could see that too, being a part of the discussion. Yeah, that's probably more likely, I would say, than him passing it on to Matthews this season.
I agree. Okay, next up, one of Easton Cowan or Fraser Minten will make the team out of training camp.
Ooh, tough one.
Only need one of them.
Okay, you go first.
I am saying absolutely. Yeah, this is a definite for me. I feel more likely Cowan makes the team, but I don't know. I think we talked about it on last week's show where I just don't, unless they're making a massive trade that brings in 1, 2, top forwards, high impact forwards, I don't see enough quality within this current forward group for them to go through training camp, preseason games. And in my mind, I think they would have to almost ignore what Easton Cowan does in training camp. Like, I'm not saying he's going to be lights out and be like the most dominant player in preseason, but in my mind, he'll absolutely be one of the Maple Leafs top 9, 10, 11 forwards. And then you also have the added element of he's only on the books for $900K if you have him on the team. So how do you overlook that and play Callie Yarncroke or David Kampf over him? Now, you'd have to find a way to trade one of those guys, but I feel I feel the front office would make an effort to move one of those guys if Cowan proves to be that important or show that kind of potential.
Yeah. Well, what about Minten? Like, Minten, he made the team last year out of training camp.
Yep.
How come you're not having him make the team this year?
I definitely think he has a great shot. And that's why, because I think both of them will get a long look and are probably both within that top, I'd say 12 to 14 forwards. I think that's almost like easy to kind of suggest that both of them fall in the top 14 forwards competing for a role. That's why the question is an easy yes for me. Because if they decide, hey, you know what? Yeah, Cowan has shown a lot of promise, but do we really want him here if he's going to be on the third line playing 10, 12 minutes a night, 14 minutes a night? Maybe it is better sending him to London. Whereas Minten, he's a year older. He might say, well, the experience he got in camp last year and making the team, he's obviously he's a little bit bigger than Cowan, so maybe more capable of playing in the NHL based on where he is in terms of the body, his physical maturity. So they might be able to make that decision based on those factors and say, yeah, you know what? Maybe Cowan, we wait on it. So I definitely think one of the two make it. And I think Minten is a definite possibility too.
Yeah. So I don't know who I would have said, but I guess I'm going to go with Minten just to be different. And I think you're right. Like, he had a sniff last year, and it would be nice to see him out there for longer than, what was it, 11 games or 9 games last season?
I think he might have only got 9 at most, because that's kind of like where I think you have to send him back down to his junior team. You've got that 9-game threshold, or else it kind of like the full salary counts on your payroll, something to that regard or whatever extent.
Yes.
So yeah, he got like 8 or 9 games. Yeah.
Got it. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, so far, halfway through these key questions, not very fun because we agree on all of them. So we're going to have to find a couple here where we have a different viewpoint. This one, I don't know if we're going to be different here, but let's see. Okay. Brendan Shanahan, in the last year of his contract, reportedly, there hasn't been much detail on what exactly his contract looks like, but most reports have said it is the final year of his contract. Will this be Shanahan's final year with the Maple Leafs organization?
Yes, for me.
Okay. And is that, do you feel that's happening no matter how the team performs, or can Shanahan salvage his job if they say get to the conference final, or is he gone no matter what in your mind?
I think
You're like, oh, you weren't supposed to ask a follow-up question.
No, it's very fair.
Yeah.
You know, he was the master of the Shana plan, and unless the team performs this year, the Shana plan failed. So they're going to need to rebuild around a new kind of core. And I think that they'll do that with somebody else. So if this year doesn't go as planned, definitely Shanahan, no, he's out.
Yep.
Maybe if they win it or they make a huge run, they, offer him an extension. But again, I really, they're going to have to make a new plan. Anyway, you tell us what you think about Shanahan.
No, I kind of feel almost the same. I think for me, the other element at play here is their new CEO or president, whatever his title is, Keith Pelly, who I feel his plan is to eliminate some of those layers in the hierarchy. We saw or they called it a mutual separation or termination. Bill Manning, who was basically president of TFC and the Argos. Basically, that role was eliminated. I see the same kind of thing, especially on the Leaf side, happening, especially with Shanahan having 1 year left. And a lot of the Leaf beat writers and reporters have said Brad Treliving, his kind of, I guess, the appreciation of Brad Treliving within the organization, the ownership, is on an upwards trajectory. So I feel, I feel Keith Pelly is going to recognize that, hey, do I really need Brad to report into Shanahan and Shanahan to report into me, and then I report into the board? Or can I just have Treliving report directly into me? Like, to quote the line from Office Space, I think Keith Pelly will probably be saying to Shanahan, what is it that you do here? Especially if you're not winning playoff rounds, what are you doing here that's of value to us going forward? So I think he's out.
Interesting. Cool take. They do have a long ladder, and I guess if you compare it to other NHL teams, it's different and long. So
totally. Yeah. And look, I think everyone recognizes, and it's always the running joke, that MLSE, they don't care about setting money on fire. But at some point, you'd have to think the ownership would be like, this is probably one hefty contract we could take off the books, right? Like, Keith Pelly, you're here and you have a vested interest. You're a passionate sports guy. That's kind of why we brought you in here. You obviously have an interest in kind of overseeing not just the Maple Leafs, also the Raptors, TFC, and the Argos. Why would we
Yeah.
make the Toronto Maple Leafs kind of more of that exception? And I think the Toronto Raptors might eventually kind of go down that same path, but I think they have a lot more appreciation for what Masai Ujiri has done. Obviously, it helps when you actually winning a championship. Shanahan hasn't done shit. So I don't know how Pelly could sell that to the board, even if he wanted to bring him back.
Yeah. Very well said. I sure hope that we take a rebuild seriously if after this season, I don't know, obviously Matthews is still around, but we take some serious moves seriously, more seriously than we did this offseason, next offseason, if we're not performing.
Yeah, I think if this team takes a step back, I think you've got to look at either doing a retool. Like, I think based on what you've committed to, like Matthews, Nylander, you already have committed to Riley. I don't see them going into like full rebuild mode. It's probably going to be more retooling.
No,
but if you lose in the first round again, and this is going to sound like a broken record, because I feel we've said this in 2021, 2022, 2023, and we're saying it again now. Mm-hmm. If it fails again and you don't get out of the first round, you have to start tearing it down. And Shanahan would have to be one of the obvious guys that you look at. Like you got rid of the GM last year. Yeah. You got rid of the coach this year. If you fail again, there's only so many players you can get rid of, especially the ones that are signed. Tough to move them. You eventually have to cut the head off, right?
Yeah, but it's tough to keep blaming management, not, actually taking a hard look at what product we are putting out on the ice.
I agree.
And obviously we're making changes to management, but definitely.
No, you have to look at the players, and I think they failed to do that up until now. And again, I think that's where a potential Mitch Marner move would finally be that, instilling confidence in the fan base that they're saying, we see exactly what the fans do as well. It ain't working.
Yeah.
It ain't working. How many times do you have to be punched in the face with the idea that what's gone on, the result at the end of each year ain't good enough. Like, it's not like we're losing in the conference final. It's not like we're losing in game 7 of the cup final, like Edmonton. At least Edmonton can say, hey, you know what? We almost won. Don't blow that up, for sure not. But the Leafs haven't been.
I know. Right? I know. The fans are so protective sometimes of players or of how the team's doing it. It's like, we're not even close. Like, it definitely not. Is a team that we're not almost there. So the fact that we keep running it back, and if we do another run it back next offseason, that would really, really surprise me, and it would very much surprise me if Shanahan was at the realm. So
agreed. Okay, so obviously the Toronto Maple Leafs signed Chris Tanev. Expectation would be that he would be paired with Morgan Rielly, which would finally, for Leaf fans, give Morgan Rielly a legitimate right shot partner to play with. Do you feel that will allow Rielly to, I guess, reemerge as a number one D-man?
I think it's been a few years. I mean, not a few years, but he has really not stood out to me in the last 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. I think to revive him would be a hefty task. And I think that they'll be very solid as a first defensive pairing, but I don't know if Rielly's going to be back to his, Olympic self form.
Yeah. Like I'm kind of, I've never really been a Morgan Rielly fan. Like I obviously like the person, the teammate, what he does kind of for the organization. long-serving Maple Leaf. Love all that stuff, but that's kind of just a fluff, right? His on-ice performance, to me, has always left something to be desired, a lot lacking, especially his defensive play. I do see the potential that Tanev will help elevate him a little bit more, but I think the idea of him being a number one D-man has almost always, for me, been more a fabrication of Leaf Nation and maybe the reporters within the Leaf Nation that said, look, if we got Morgan Riley, he's playing 25 minutes a night, he must be a number one D. Well, no, you have to look at the actual play performance. Yes, he's had some very offensively productive years, but I've never been there that he's a true NHL legitimate number one. Yeah.
I would argue there was a few seasons in there that he was playing really well.
Offensively, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. But to say he's never been a true number one, I would disagree with that personally.
Okay.
But he's
he did have a 72-point season. Yeah, he had two really good seasons where you're right. You couldn't deny that based on that production, he was a number one. But I think for me, it's always been more the underlying issues that he presented as someone who was entrusted to be a number one D. Like, yes, he was the Maple Leafs number one D, but for me, it's always been like, okay, when you compare him to a Stanley Cup contender and who they maybe are employing as a number one D, for me, there's always been a gap there. So I agree. I think there's been seasons where,
that's true.
There's been seasons where he absolutely deserved to be recognized as a top maybe 15, top 20 D. So I'm with you there. It's always felt like, is he a number one D on the Maple Leafs because there's no one better? Is he viewed as a number one because on a lot of teams in the league, he might be a number one, but is he on a Stanley Cup contender? To me, he's never really been like a number one D, and that's what you need. You'll need a guy who you can play whatever it is, 25, 26 minutes a night, and he's never kind of felt like he fits that.
Yeah. Well, he's married to Tessa Virtue, and he's having a baby, or he just had a baby. Like, he's the perfect Maple Leaf, very nice guy. We've become emotionally attached to Morgan.
I think there's a lot to that. Yep.
So he is.
Oh, we spent time talking about that, right? Where like Leaf fans just get so emotionally attached to who the player is off the ice, and like, but you see all the things he posts on IG. He's such a great guy. He's doing all these like community events, and like, he loves being a Maple Leaf. Yeah, I get all that, and that's all well and good, but at some point that can't be enough,
Yeah.
There's got to be some on-ice advantages of having that player here too.
Exactly. It's there has to be a balance, at least. The very least.
You got it.
They need to provide. Yes.
All right, so let's kind of go through. I got three more here that we can probably kill off pretty quickly. The Maple Leafs goaltending with the now signing of backup Anthony Stolarz. The Leafs goaltending will be top 10 in the league.
I don't think so. I don't think so. No. Nay.
Okay. Nay for that. Okay. We're going to have opposite views on this one, finally. I think it will. I mean, obviously, a lot of it presumes Wool to be healthy. So that is kind of a, obviously something that I don't think too many fans would be confident in based on what we've seen with Wool's injuries. But I'll take the side that those injuries were mostly fluke fluke injuries and kind of more random occurrences versus a actual legitimate concern on his ability to take the net for whatever 40 or 50 games. So to me, the combination, the tandem of Wall and Stolarz, to me, I feel that's going to give them top 10 goaltending. Also playing behind an improved blue line.
That's
so
true.
I'll say yes. I'll say yes there.
Okay, well, they only need to be better than 2 of 3 other teams. So it's, not so. And you're right, we do have an improved blue line. So yeah, I wouldn't.
And probably a coach.
Probably wouldn't bet against it. And a different coach.
Who will probably preach more defensive accountability and responsibility. So all those factors are kind of what I'm weighing. Okay.
Okay. Well, we'll have to check back and see how they're doing.
Yeah, we're definitely have to keep track. I'm going to jot down both of our answers, and we're have a check-in at the quarter point of the season and see how we're looking.
That sounds great.
Next up, at the end of this upcoming season, will William Nylander's contract be unanimously viewed as an overpayment?
Nay.
Okay. Are you viewing it as an overpayment now, or have you been good with that contract value since he signed?
I'm good with it this season, and I'm hoping we're good with it next season. But I'm not looking ahead to see how it's going to be in the next few seasons. For now, I'm living in the present. I think he played well when he played in the playoffs, and he did great in the regular season. So I'm trying to be present-minded considering him.
I like it. Okay. Yeah, very fair. Yeah, for me, and I might be coming from a perspective where I hated the contract when it got signed. I thought 11.5 for a winger who's mostly a one-dimensional offensive player who, has been notorious for taking off games, taking off shifts, and kind of having, not exactly the greatest level of compete or consistency. It just felt like a little bit too much money going out there. And then obviously what we saw in the second half of the year is a drop off in his production. I think he was sitting at 90, 95 points for the last 2-3 weeks of the year. And everyone was like, oh, is he going to get 105 points? Is he going to get 110? And no, he finished with 97. So I don't know if it had something to do with him kind of mailing it in because he got paid, but he would probably be one of the first players I would say might have mailed it in based on what we've seen with him, with the kind of indifferent play at times. I'm totally with you on the playoff performance. He's always kind of shown up, at least from a production standpoint. But we're also talking about showing up in one round. We're not talking about a McDavid Draisaitl showing up. So, I take that kind of with a grain of salt. But I think what we're going to get from Nylander will probably be more of the same. But I think you're going to be hard pressed to, at the end of the year, saying, that feels like we got good ROI on an 11.5 deal. So I'm going to say we will view it as an overpayment.
Okay. So we're in conflict there.
Yeah.
Talent is expensive these days. You got to pay up for these big guys.
Yeah, you do. And I think that's where, and now I'm going to play the devil's advocate. I think you might see in 2 or 3 years that my take is going to be needs to be thrown in the garbage because maybe some of these other players that are coming up for new deals are just going to go way past Nylander. I'm still not of the belief that players of his ilk, his kind of, the fact that he is more of that one-dimensional talent with a lot of kind of, let's call it, warts in his game. I'm not sure that there's going to be a lot of players like William Nylander that will surpass his 11.5. So I think we're going to see players that exceed his production that make around the same as him or less, and therefore we might view it as an overpayment. But we shall see. We shall see.
Okay. We'll see.
So, yeah. That's why it's fun. That's why it's fun to answer these questions on July 24th, because we know absolutely nothing. Final question. If the New Jersey Devils finish higher than the Maple Leafs in the standings, it would suggest to many fans and media types that Sheldon Keefe was not the problem with this team.
Yeah.
You could obviously go in a few different ways here and interpret the question differently, but where are you at with that generally?
My answer will be that nay, Sheldon wasn't the problem.
Okay.
With the Leafs.
Like the main problem or a problem at all? One of?
He was a problem, but he wasn't the problem.
Yeah, because I think where my question is coming from, and maybe I should have prepped it a little bit more, because it is kind of, maybe a little bit complex in terms of what's the expected answer or response. I think for me, the New Jersey Devils, I think that team, in terms of what they did in the offseason, them underachieving last year, it almost feels like you could put whoever behind the bench and that team is going to perform way better than they did this past year. So Sheldon Keefe will probably get credit for that, because people will say, well, New Jersey did make the playoffs last year, and then they brought in Sheldon Keefe, and they're a top 3 team in their division. Whereas for me, I'll look at it and be like, well, yeah, I get it, but he had a really good team where the expectation should have been higher. So for me, even if they do finish higher than the Maple Leafs in the standings, I would still kind of think that Sheldon Keefe, maybe not the main problem. I've never kind of felt he was the main problem, but for sure one of the bigger problems with the team's failures. Yeah. So for me, I think people will suggest that. Yeah. Because I think there's a lot of fans, as you know, you kind of hear from them on your TikTok account and on your timeline on Twitter. There was probably a large portion of the fan base that were pleading for the Pittsburgh Penguins to make the playoffs last year and go on a big run to come back here and come back on Twitter and say, you see, you Leaf fans who were happy that Dubas got fired or was let go, however you want to term it, look what he did with Pittsburgh. But obviously they weren't able to say much after how Pittsburgh performed. So I feel there's going to be there's a lot of people who were in Sheldon Keefe's corner who are probably just waiting, drafting up those tweets right now, and just eager to press send when the New Jersey Devils finish ahead of the Maple Leafs. I know it's coming.
Oh, it's going to be interesting when the Devils and the Leafs play for the first time. Especially at Scotia Arena.
Yeah, that will be a fun one for sure. And we even get it, even before he's not even gone yet. But how many times do you come across a fan saying, if the Leafs trade Mitch Marner, he will win a cup next year?
Oh yeah.
Does that even matter where he goes, or just trading him anywhere? Is he that impactful that no matter where he goes, he's going to win a cup? Okay, just pump the brakes. But unbelievable how many times I've heard that
thing. It's just a Leafs fan reaction, normal reaction from us.
Very normal. Yeah, it's not even it's a lot of Leaf fans, but then also more of the non-Leaf fans, whether it's Hab fans, Sens fans, who just love to say that any player, coach, or GM that's a former Leaf employee or player will all of a sudden just perform miracles and win wherever they go. Like people just love to say that the Leafs made a mistake in getting rid of someone. And look, I think we can all admit the Leafs have made a ton of mistakes where they probably deserve to hear those comments. But the amount of people saying, oh, the Leafs think they're going to do better without Kerfoot, Justin Hall, Kyle Dubas, you know? And it's like, guys, come on. Get real.
Mitch Marner, if it does happen that Mitch Marner leaves, that chorus from Mitch, the chorus from Mitch fans will be very loud.
Yeah. There's going to be like Leaf fans and then just like a lot of Mitch Marner fans because they're just going to be waiting at the edge of their seat for Mitch Marner to outscore Austin Matthews, to, you know, do anything. And they'll be like, maybe Marner maybe Marner wasn't the problem. Look how good he's doing in Utah.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, can't wait for it. All right. Yep. You know it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any final thoughts from your end? Anything you're looking forward to upcoming week, Leafland or otherwise?
Well, it's still been a pretty slow week. I'm really excited for the Olympics to start Friday.
Sure.
I know, you mentioned a few events have already started. Yeah. So it's going to be a great 2 weeks of Summer Olympics.
Yep.
And that will help bring us through this hockey off season.
I think so.
What about you? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, well, I think that's top of mind for me as well. And I don't know if you've been looking at any Olympic wagers yet, but I took the over on gold medals for Canada. It was at 5.5. And I think the over is a pretty safe play.
Yeah, that does sound fairly safe. That's a good one to bet on too.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a juiced up line. I think it was like minus 148. Okay. But I feel like I don't think it's a guarantee, but it feels like, I mean, they won 7 golds the last summer games. And I forget the name of a swimmer that we have. It's she's 17 years old.
Or Summer McIntosh?
Yes, Summer McIntosh, who's apparently like the women's Michael Phelps. Okay. Yeah.
So she could stack them up. Okay.
Exactly. Cool. Like she on her own could win 2 or 3. So if she performs the way she has in kind of some of the either world championships or just the regular
you're
event,
more than halfway there.
In the event calendar, exactly. You're only halfway there. And there's also
I'm going to look into those futures.
Yeah. You have to make that play soon, though, Caroline. They're not going to let you make that play after they win a gold tomorrow night.
TikTok. Clock's ticking.
Exactly.
I know what you mean. Okay. I'll check it out.
All right. Well, it was awesome getting all caught up with you on Leaf and hockey news. And thank you to the audience for tuning in. And as always, you can find us here, Leafs Unfiltered, every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. So definitely drop us a comment if you have any suggestions, any feedback for us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep. Thanks so much, Josh. A lot of fun as always.
You got it. All right, everyone. Have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Bye.